Hello, America. The nature of debate since America's founding has contained quality aspects in nature slash S, generated from roles with a breaching method at all locations slash S. And this is also manifest as self-valued roles with it. This is also the idea for collaboration video slash S, which first we have to make legal agreements because it's a serious subject and we don't have time to get wrong anymore. In other words, for example, too, let me know. For example, uses of words like prejudice and or reparations are used to measure and maintain how we all want better than injunctive reliefs, that we have means to better than free, better than we could afford if we gave everything we had to as the value nature system as is. Because we left out those original abridgments. We left out how our founders wanted to be recognized as the face of James Madison, and they were using his plan. And then they went and got George Washington agreed to use that plan. But we have not had one person allow someone to be honest about George Washington's extortion. We're supposed to be honest about George Washington's extortion, let alone James Madison, his plan, and the founders behind him. No one had free speech because everyone's speech was checked. It's either collusions while pretending other with the human factor human nature breaching method, had slavery against everyone sickly distinctly, but it was North and South colonies. And that's why and how it stayed during the Civil War, North and South entrenched. In other words, our founders forced them to fight against slavery syntactically because both sides were collusion slash us with the breaching method involved with that hyper slavery to focus on that one aspect that is non-distinctly against everyone. And also the hyper evidential presented for where and how this has existed, but it has stayed out of these conversations. So now you have all natures of experts of sciences that have stayed abridged. And there are conscious uses of that as timed collusions as criminal insidiousness natures, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, a whole bunch of different countries, uh, shared on and off campuses together, where and how this is roles at all locations with this breaching method since before America's founders were born. And that has them still, their identity stolen. It has the nature of debate regarding the evidences and regarding the validity of something just because it is published. So you guys have evidence reception and diffusion, racketeering, worse than war crime natures, black pupils. We have black pupils' whites of eyes to discern. We have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time, and there are exceptions because of how there is an identity of hyperrelativity that is making more of itself as hyper additional nature. And for example, there are 5 identities of order that are simultaneously positive or not. And though there is the value of its how it is the reason we all ask questions. And so we could observe through history the people speaking about encountering crimes had collusions with predicate acts with facts and with those same crimes and location slash us uses since before that and during it and since. And then it was sustained until there were all differences. Everyone would use instances to leave out the value of what came first, including Native Americans against Native Americans before our founders were born. The other 2/3 of them, 1/3 of them had to be counter extorted at 13 locations. 1/3 of them was our founders behind James Madison, and 1/3 of them were Native Americans who were still fighting with Native Americans because everyone's syntax was forcing everyone else's syntax to use short words and convictions relative as systems tactical ulterior from the hypernative one. And nature itself demonstrates to us. This is how the sciences are so overtly / insidiously abridged, and we all know this. But how we don't move on those things, we all know. The human species body of individual bodies, individual grouped and together. We have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Values have relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Exceptions in exception nature come with this, and with instances, descriptions, and database relativity / IES since before computers, since before our founders were born. The republic for which we stand and its campuses, systems, and functions / S. They were criminally re-engineered. They are criminally re-engineered manifestations of the science / S that revealed them before the sciences became criminally foreign influenced and tactically delusions raw, as this is observable through history. All extensive. We have that self-value too, and there is remote uses of that. And with this comes means to discern the screening of motivations and forgiveness and not forgiving. They go together. For example, we're not supposed to leave out the breaching method. That is one of the things that nature shows us, where it shows us the founders behind James Madison and his plan, and George Washington. Their communications are just distinct from their verbal and written, except for the Constitution on a bridge. But we know they left it abridged. We're supposed to explain that. We're supposed to explain how those crazy laws, if you want one part of it, you want to adjust one part of it with your short words, no. They'll just stack more fake things. Torture method, extortion, slavery method. So this is also on my end. This is an affidavit. I promise you, I will tell no lies. This is the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, because this is a hyper evidential. We're using leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. A whole bunch of names that have been planting evidences on off parks, on off town, on off all sides of criminal and civil cases. And the difference of them, their family members, overt criminal enterprises at the same time, even when they're not present in the cases. Private ones, names on off news locations. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves about the World Trade Center attack. When I caught them forcing a principal child abuser with the kids of courts and of police forms who have been involved, also medical, foreign and domestic medical families, has something to do with their roles with the families next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, where people have their roles with wire crimes and timed uses of untimely deaths roles, and with the people involved also with body dumping spots. Also things confirmed on Facebook pages by the intelligence community involved, like with WFSB and next to them, increasingly as ones before in the World Trade Center attack, and that's in Manhattan. And in Washington, these are people involved with names and location uses in Washington, D.C. also involved. And then I fought there too, two or three times at the in a boxing tournament. But also I was in the court and watched in New York City and in Washington, D.C. Our people that also had roles with all sides of criminal and civil cases, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, proven child offenders, leaders of kids still being forced on kids, roles with that in the past, roles with the spots, and these are ones with and as the spots next to the Fox Connecticut News, next to WFSB, next to WTNH. These are also the FBI, roles with war crime acts and methods with the Wethersfield police, and with the families with the 911 phone calls. Fake transcripts, changed ones, fake ties, nature ties to those families, planting evidences. They have people involved with bug spray threats and gun threats and knife threats. That's why they won't. They're switching names and forging names into branch. They have their Facebook pages involved also with passions crimes because they're hiding what I caught them with former director of the FBI, Robert Lusk. I didn't know his name at the time, and his lawyer, Robert Chevrolet, and his co-defendant's lawyer is also Robert Chevrolet. He was warned by a judge not to go in that case in 2006 if it ever came up without a lawyer. And Thaddeus Grabowski, a Dominic Lapriado, and a John LeConch. They have roles with people on Fox Connecticut News, WFSB, all along Route 175 and Route 3. They have roles with falsifying police reports, planting evidences, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, stealing the words of federal agencies and agents, some ways the federal agencies stealing the state's rights, where the state's rights are used originally still criminally foreign influence, big difference. So on a mass scale, people are pretending the value of voting is worth what it isn't. People are pretending the value of enemies and or of allies is worth what it isn't. A through Z, we have a shared enemy. As long as we focus on that, we'll make it through. Ugh. See about interbranch switching and forging names because they already had collusions with all sides in criminal and civil cases at the same time. While they're tactically delusions raw. Harvard Hospital has individuals involved with a whole bunch of natures and distinct natures of organized crime. And, identity theft, fraud, slanders. More natures of things than there are houses in Hartford, than there are streets in Hartford. Let alone how there are streets. In other words, the people are being abused through our own. The reason it is because there are other foreign names here. There's a hyper foreign name here and there, and it keeps even the most powerful groupings, the UN, NATO. UN has roles with a Bob Chase, and the agencies have roles with interplatforms, with the police forms, with behavior descriptions and instances descriptions and names uses. While they have roles to an extent consciously stacking databases criminally foreign influence as collusions, there are names at every campus I went to who are attached to faked and changed conversations with me, also with the people tied to them. These are people that need to pretend it's personal when I bring that up because they're already locked in all sides of criminal and civil cases from the past and through time. They need to hide life progressions. Per ones that they had conversations, they try to make it look like they had a conversation with me with a Kevin Harris. Kevin Harris has roles with Quinnipiac University, all kinds of all the colleges and campuses, but they have roles with the intelligence community, with polling, questions, used criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought to sense and maintain. Left out are hyper extraterritorial criminal foreign influences. I'm not police, I'm not a judge, I'm not a doctor. They have personal and professional roles attaching me and kids and adults to fake conversations and ties to doctors. Per use of location /s increasingly, they've been keeping criminal enterprises grouped wrong. For example, as this breaching method showed them how to pretend they could speak for the law at New York City, at suburbs, let alone New York City. Suburbs were designed tactically denatured for torture, extortion, and slavery before America's founders were born. The nature of debate regarding this is being and has been possessed, perhaps per use /s, of the sciences abridged and pretending other. And then having to rely on that, where he said, she said, was his employed. In other words, confessions are made through statements. There's a detective, Samuda, who's one of the ones involved with an O'Brien family, and a CN Paglione family, with some prosecutors and judges involved with sexual and medical offenders and legal at the same time, and identity thefts and frauds, falsified police reports, switching officers' names in the same police reports for the same arrest. Then multiple police reports through time connected. On a mass scale, they put charges with no writing and then put fake things in databases, fake motivation screening too. They have a whole bunch of countries involved with it. There was an Italian woman. I didn't have any response to it, who had an aggressive, angry look at me in New Britain Superior Court. There are people with the name Demoro Scalora, and there are others. There are other Italians who are involved with intercultural and intracultural identity theft, fraud, slander, with the Wethersfield police chiefs retired. Like a police chief, Centron has a Mazzucato bakery. Per themselves, have been planting evidences with them through time, also with forensics locations and people all along Route 3 and where Mazzucato Bakery is now since before it was there. There's a police chief, since other retired police chiefs involved with drugs and medicines, crimes with little kids, untimely deaths with a Robert Rodriguez, and more with the principal child defenders campus. A Jessica Cintron is one of the names that was brought up by Jonathan Moyano. And these are people that are with a officer Jerry Miller, who is planting evidences rolls on all sides of my house, and with a Schumack family has roles with people with some KKK theme, black theme, and religious spots, who are the ones also rolls with those narratives where they're pretending kids that never even saw each other on campuses. And like my neighbor, I never even saw him around campuses. The one exception were like, in other words, the bus, and even that, we had nothing to do with each other on the bus. In other words, I never saw him around the the campus at all at my grammar school. There was a sixth grade teacher that lived near me, who was involved with foreign and domestic military and with the religious parts, and with planting evidences through time to keep the identities of the law fake and pretending other, to keep them self-valued rules of readings of the statutes and precedents criminally foreign influence, simultaneously self-valuing people, self-valuing descriptions of American history that can't defend themselves and afford to discern that primary to our understanding of American history. And you can't even be honest about the extortion of George Washington. You can't afford the answers that nature presents with this hyper programming, with this hyper intelligence. So lawyers too, their motivations apparent. That's not by accident. They come with hyper additional means to discern them. So all sides in criminal cases, the lawyers, their family members, people that work for them, their family members, it's all digitally recorded. It was his tactical terror than they pretend. So you used to see people with A or B and leaving out exception nature. We have black people as whites. So we're going to break the medical business, what they call integrity, because what they're trying, the people countering, they're all collusion. So we're gonna observe, because we can observe this. You guys are this breaching method through our own made other things, others ourselves, blamed for nature's demonstrations to us. And we're going to reverse the colors. And we're going to use exception nature the way it does to reveal evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. And so this video is going to be about how we're going to make. In this video, we're acting. But one of the things we're going to make while we're acting, we're going to be acting that we're doing. And it's like Little Rap Guy and Friends. This is counter obfuscated / counter hyper obfuscated. But in other words, they are charged with cultivating the counter extortion of names A through Z of the human species value nature system. But it's to free everyone. Because not only he's making, has them cultivating their own counter extortion, but he used it little rap kind of friends are using hyper intelligence, this programming method, to discern the actually discernible human fact achieving nature breaching method, and nature showing us how to label it as a hyper archetypal criminal enterprise, and how it will reward us A through Z. There's not one person it won't reward, because it will also, as everyone agrees at once, to this pantheism slash hyper pantheism. We're gonna tactically, counter tactically slash counter hyper tactically donate to the world in a way, cognizant and capable of, the debate is not over who's holding a nuclear code. The debate is about how the nuclear weapons have been all that time, where all sides had the means to transverse the earth. But you have the suburbs having been tactically denatured before America's founders were born, involved with torture, extortion, slavery method to measure everyone from abroad, and using that, using how they need food and research. Look at New York City, only allowed to be unfolded that way. Cities across the world. The suburbs in Russia and America are designed the same way they were. So then you have people who will jump up with passions and emotions. Oh, I don't believe that. That's why they won't allow people to use predicate acts as facts. And they pretend not to understand that and how people could stick fake and change information into databases. And increasingly, every year, connect them. I fear God. World Trade Center attack was all sides. So this is also the intelligence community knows that people saying that because they're following predicate acts rules. They pretend it's personal. They brought those names up. Weathersfield Police and intelligence community with Central Connecticut State University. And Saudis they forced with whiting forensics to wire crimes with them and with the news agencies. O'Neill is one of the names involved. These are also people involved with Afghan leaders and kids in the cover-ups. There is an O'Neill, the person who went to attack, to attack, who a whole bunch of collusions with the people behind him, with the attackers on 9/11, and with the court next to it, all sides of criminal and civil cases, interstates. We're going to use the hyper evidential. Please have Judge Napolitano notified of whole predicate acts methods recorded and remote uses of the Facebook pages of the courts involved and of his and the FBI is involved in their defending capacities with former director of the FBI where they can be sued. Ugh. And or simultaneously hyper-wooed. In other words, we can force the law to be led by the hyper-native. And that really reveals the earth, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that with a system that shows us how to make means out of nowhere, which includes showing us the difference between positive criminal and citizen's natures of positive, like a truth used for lie, or a truth used to screen a motivation. For collusions with subjects, in other words, for example, there are questions that are being asked by the top professionals that they can't defend how and why they're asking those questions and afford to exist, let alone to protract the words of anyone using convictions in theory properly. In other words, so they have roles switching names, forging name self-value. So this breaching method, it knew that it was nature is going to demonstrate to the kids of New York City distinctly from, but also non-distinctly from the kids in the suburbs across the country and world. The campuses, the sciences, the descriptions of history, of the principles of reason, have been abridged. But these descriptions contain other, and they're claiming to be for positive reasons and per relativity negative, but as collusion slash S. So we're not going to leave out the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positives. And we're not going to leave out the hyper evidential, where we could use the criminally foreign influenced acts, predicate acts methods too, and delusions of doctors, including ones especially differentially, but ones with the who went to school to be experts on that. All the campuses are. We have to address how it is recorded. There are tactically juxtaposed, distinct, non-distinct, but juxtaposed distinct natures of organized crime and crime roles, and illegitimate uses of all legitimate uses of the unmarked police forms roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and terrorists. See uses of radical and of extremism and of groupthink. The locations, areas, and states use their states' rights to defend their titles and whatever, and or the the counters to people doing it, whether using the defending natures of power, definitions of power that preclude and leave that make it impossible for anyone to speak about the five simple parts of power. Truth as itself, as it was before the smallest finite detail we could grapple with now, and only to an extent, no. And then that that finite and or the order of the finite. That's the second identity of power, of truth. That can be truth simultaneously or not. Because every truth connects to the complex of truth. In other words, I'm not a doctor, but like they're the complex of vitamins, and we can't mimic this. So say we go, then we go to where and how people are making. Not because people are making money for good reasons or bad reasons. To an extent, all of them are bad reasons to keep employed identities of logic, natures of logic, who don't even realize you guys jump into other people's conversations when we know predicate acts, like ones with the World Trade Center attack. WFSB attached people to fake and to change conversations with themselves and with the World Trade Center attack. Stop. You see what I'm saying? So you guys are incapable of dealing with reason because, since when did any identity of law not have roles? Keeping blamed on other things, others, or selves. The real cause of negative value nature progression is acts in nature. We don't need an Ice Cube movie, a Coolio movie to show us. We have our own campuses. Why and how people don't speak about it is these reasons we know, because we don't want to hurt people. Because naturally we love our species body. It is our own. See, this breaching method showed overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and names with insidiousness at locations A through Z roles. Now, these are roles that no one wanted, but increasingly there are exceptions made for everyone. But no one understands that because everyone just played roles, abridged. We're supposed to get the Constitution unabridged. So, in other words, Judge Napolitano, please, it's mandated law that you help me because there are people with violence and they're putting fake motivations. Because I caught them with putting faking evidence as physical and digital with untimely deaths and murders that had timed connections and confessions roles that brought up the principal child defender's campus. I recorded them forcing with the hyper evidential and with their kids and with the news to speak fake things in records because they go all sides. They have a method they already use. They have methods they already use where all sides of criminal and civil cases and the lawyers and interbrand switching sequences, names, and or the people with the prisons tied to them too. They're putting fake things increasingly too. The Sandy Hook campuses had rolled crimes with their patients and criminals before they got caught. A whole bunch of people out the state corrections offices, out of state judicial offices, involved also with drugs and medicines crimes with teachers I had. And their conversations with students and ones I never had a conversation with went out of their way to make little things where they would go, oh well, that looks like how would you have? Oh, you didn't though. You didn't have no because they're doing little magic tricks. That's why they use corners of buildings to plant evidences, fake ties and fake natures of ties to people. Increasingly, Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have rolls with a whole bunch of people who planted evidences on my street in Weathersfield, also with names next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, also with names that used to live on my street. And that was also how they were hyper evidential. We could all observe because they have rules of the World Trade Center attack, putting me in faked and changed communications with a Keene family as victims of it, and their neighbors are involved with body dumping spots and confessions regarding the roles with the and God bless them. I'm not want anything bad speak bad about them. That's why they're using that. The police too. They're pretending. Oh, those are victims. They're pretending passions and emotions. These are victims advocates too. And the Britain Superior Court, involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, involved with foreign and domestic military, something to do with their roles with families that worked on off the shopping centers and big box stores through different ones and the spots next to it. And what it is that has to do it is manifest. They don't even realize the extent of it because they are used live progressions and their natures are also used. So there are people on it has Weathersfield police have wire crimes in Weathersfield Pizza also in the state judicial branch offices and a Faenza family with the houses there. Others I don't know the names of, but they know my name. Has something to do with their roles with the untimely death at Trinity College, even if it was made up, even if the murder of Greg Kyler was made up. That's also involved with the people involved with other body dumping spots and murders and timed collusions and confessions intercities that were made. So the houses that live next to an apartment and apartment people have roles with the on Covington Street in New Britain, have intelligence roles with ones on Zion Street that are pretending to be and are actually Los Solitos, even if they're only pretending to be, who have wire crimes with Weathersfield police, switching and forging names, and with child offenders again. The same names had timed roles, uses of elderly homes, and one's next to the state corrections offices. See, these are also roles with uses of town lines and difference slash S black people. Yeah, we'll break them here. No, better than reliefs for free and where we could afford more than if we use these systems on a bridge and pretending other. We got immediate reliefs for the people of the world where it's most needed first and simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously we're going to donate counter tactically slash counter hyper tactically. Pantheism is another part of these videos, and we're going to make a hyper theater as a part of the video slash S. Because hyper theater is real, and so are nature shows. So we're going to make nature shows, and we're going to observe when we switch color. We're not just going to switch color and play some other stupid slavery movies and things like that. We're going to show the hyper theater and the difference of it as criminal insidiousness, or is that hyper native pure? which can and will only stay positive unto itself, and or it shows us the value of a special difference, and as your own, and with its loss, not physically, but length of Hadith, force, space, nature transfer. This is more probably how the ancients discerned this, because English demonstrably was revealed to be taught other than we have been afforded means to discern. And then if you guys help me, I'll get we get this thing actually grounded. You know, we make evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. Positive value nature progressions that don't stop. We have to be the right nature and right up front with the right things, vaccines. So that's what we're going to observe. We're going to observe how, since founding, everyone lied about the extortion of our founders and their difference. /S. /ES. I know, /S. Whatever. We're gonna observe how a breaching method had been sustained against Native Americans A through Z. That had already been sustained against countries A through Z. That had already been sustained against all groupings of humanity. See suits and ties, counters, and exceptions come with collusion /S that could also be used as evidence. So forgiveness is also so we can show how names A through Z have guilt together. And there's recorded use /S of it, which also shows the breaching method. And to discern that, we have to write the list. So this hyper programming also appreciates lists in ways. It's also mail and wire crime methods with the courts and police associated with the digital crimes, with the campuses and medical too. A whole bunch of people from Harvard Hospital, they names dropped. They brought up the name D. Simone and Casper is also involved with wire crimes, drugs and medicines crimes, and sexual and medical and other natures of abuses of little kids and of elderly and veterans homes. And prisons, same torture method they use at prisons. They keep mouth shut up at veterans' homes, elderly homes. They're locking them in there. You fear God, they hold our means back. They have. Boxing, who disbelieves? Get them on one name in sequence. The FBI has roles with Joshua Julian and with the Weathersfield Police too, as one of the names recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by others, and then he demonstrated that was true on Facebook. He has roles with home break-ins in the area and wire crimes, the Weathersfield Police, and with foreign and domestic people. A whole bunch of people with whiting forensics also involved with digital crimes, digital sex offenders of little kids, leaders of kids, because there's other natures of organized crime. I recorded at the same time. The security families involved with the school, spirit, God. Get them on paper, one name in sequence. Let me show you how to think, vaccines. Who disbelieves? Get them these same ones, World Trade Center attack, in the court next to it. You fear God.